In a world gone mad with unnecessary reboots, remakes, and sequels, only one podcast has the guts to make it even worse. This is Smack My Pitch Up. Hello, geeks, and welcome to another episode of Smack My Pitch Up, the podcast that reboots, remakes, reimagines, sequels, cycles, and adapts to your favorite and least favorite properties from film, TV, comics, books, and what have you. And tonight, I've got a special guest to talk about one of the classic revenge teen comedies of all time, Heathers. With me tonight is Reese, coming from Shockoe Sessions, a voice actor. Many hats have been worn, as we were talking about before the episode started. Welcome.
I run my mouth for a living.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I got into podcasting, as I was talking so much anyway. I might as well try to get paid for it.
Mm-hmm. Everyone does their best.
So all the hats you're wearing, okay, so you're a YouTuber, you're a podcaster, voice actor. What kind of stuff can we see you in?
Yeah, so I've been a voice actor for 25 years. I've done everything. I do on-hold messaging. I do local commercials for Virginia Lottery and local businesses, things like that, that you'll hear on the radio. And then every Tuesday at 7:30, I host a weekly live streaming series called Shockoe Sessions Live with In Your Ear Studio downtown. We have a band that plays, and I read comments that are going on during the recording and everything. It's a lot of fun. And then we have a companion podcast to that called This Room Sounds Great, where we get to interview the musicians about a week before. So we actually get to chat with them more than have them just perform. And then I have my own podcast called Spying on Humanity. So yeah, like I said, I run my mouth for a living.
Well, fortunately for our listeners, we have about an hour of running our mouths about this fantastic film.
When I joke at parties, I say I use my mouth for a living. I always like to leave that open to just see what people think.
I might have to steal that from you. That is fantastic. I love that. Now, Heathers is from 1989, tail end of the 80s. It's got, two heartthrobs of the 80s and 90s. Winona Ryder and Christian Slater as the main characters. And this movie was kind of the beginning of almost its own genre of like teen girl revenge high school movies.
Yeah.
There's all these,
and making murder acceptable.
Weirdly acceptable. It's strange. Like the closest kind of spiritual sibling to Heathers would probably be Jawbreaker from the late 90s, about 10 years
later. Rose McGowan, right?
Rose McGowan, and I think Denise Richards was in it, and a few other folks, but it very much has the same DNA as Heathers does. Teen girls getting super catty to the point of murder happening. So, and then we've got a kind of nicer version of it with Mean Girls in the early 2000s as well. Less murder. I think someone gets hit by a bus, but I don't think there's actual murder in Mean Girls. So
yeah, and they make Rachel McAdams get real fat, but that's not.
Now, the interesting thing with a movie that is, close to 40 years old, like 30 something years old. I know.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's 30 plus years old at this point. It's interesting to see kind of culturally how we've changed over the years to what's acceptable and not acceptable. And Heathers is definitely one of those moments where I don't think it overall aged terrible. It's not problematic like some movies are. There's just some things that are a little bit much, and kind of figuring out how to put that in a more modern element. Like at one point, Christian Slater's character pulls a gun in school.
Right.
But it's full of blanks, so he only gets, a week suspension?
I'm shocked how many people don't know about it. When I mentioned to several people that I was coming on to do this, they were like, yeah, I don't know it. And I thought, oh, you're not sick and twisted. No wonder we're just acquaintances.
Yeah, no, right?
And now we have things like American Horror Story. If you think about the if you want to go the 30-year arc.
Sure.
Now we have things like that where it's just out there.
Wide open.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking like 1989, the stuff that we were able to see on television isn't anywhere close to what we can get on TV now. I mean, we've got like The Walking Dead and like all these shows, even Hannibal. If you ever watched an episode of Hannibal, that's so gory, and that's on network television, or was. Mm-hmm. So just the arc of what is acceptable and not acceptable has changed pretty dramatically.
Well, and the big difference too with them is it wasn't necessarily gory, but it was just the fact that it was high school age children that were plotting and colluding and doing what they were doing.
I think early in the film, one of the Heathers says something along the lines of like, fuck me with a chainsaw. And that's
Yeah.
when you know you're off to the races. Like, okay, this is not a PG-13, like teen comedy romp kind of thing. This is a little more realistic, honestly.
And of course, she's so prim and proper with her scrunchie and,
Right. It does. I do enjoy films like this where it shows the teenage lifestyle and it's not cleaned up like a lot of the teen comedies tend to be, where there's kids smoking and drinking and having sex and just being just bad people, just gross teenagers with terrible opinions and are think they know everything kind of attitudes. And it's important. And that's even portrayed in the main characters, the like the good guys, quote unquote, of this story are still kind of full of themselves.
Well, they are, and they also give you with each character they give you a glimpse into their home life, which is pretty cool.
Mhm.
As you say, a lot of movies they'll sort of gloss over that. You've got your John Hughes. Wow, really? Everybody lives in like a Frank Lloyd Wright house and has Porsches in their garage.
Right.
Okay, So this kind of gave you a glimpse. I mean, Veronica's parents are pretty odd. They're really weird. They're very frank with her. They talk to her like a friend almost. She doesn't have a whole lot of boundaries. And then, of course, JD. I mean, his dad is just definitely, quote unquote, his best friend.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. So
it's definitely like single dad that's just like, fuck it, I'm not going to be a dad. I'm just going to be, he's just my guy kind of attitude.
Last year of high school, who cares?
Yeah, right. It's not like he's going to go on a murder spree or anything.
He's not going to strap a bomb to himself and blow the school up.
Right.
And thinking about that too, culturally, this was well before any invasions on schools.
Oh, well. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm interested to see on how we approach it, because these are big taboos nowadays for, good reason. Anything from Columbine on, talking about explosives or school shootings, anything of that ilk, it doesn't play too well. It's a sensitivity culturally. And I'm kind of interested to see how both of us have decided to kind of avoid that, or better modernize that conversation that the movie has. First off, are you doing a modern take, or is this like a period piece, like set in the 80s, or?
It's a modern take,
okay.
But a completely different age group and setting. Yeah.
Well, then, what age group are you looking at? Are you thinking like college or?
Adults. They're adults, young adults.
Because it'd be a bit much to see kindergartners trying to kill each other. That'd be.
You can see kids on their tricycle, like going full speed. Somebody else trying to clip them on the heels to like plow them over.
See some like Mad Max style like tricycles going around the schoolyard. Yeah, I'm actually. That sounds incredible. I'm actually kind of into that. That might have to come up in another episode of Smack My Pitch Up. Okay, so college age.
Yeah, so college age, aroundish, and the thought is that they've all gotten their first jobs. So they're kind of in cubicle world. So as a reimagining, they're a little older. They're in cubicle world, and so they're kind of all the Karens.
Oh no!
Instead of the Heathers. And so everybody, everybody still has a similar disposition as the initial Heathers, but I've chosen actresses who can really embody them better. And then, of course, you have just circumstantial things going on that allows them to play out, all the stuff that they did in Heathers as well.
Sure. Nice. I kept mine the same age, but there was, I think, culturally kind of important to inform the kind of classist conversation that was an undertone in the original and really pump that up a bit more, is that instead of a regular public school, I made this a private Catholic school that all the kids went to. So there are conversations about there only being a couple minority students there. There are conversations about Veronica kind of not belonging in her own way, even though her family is wealthy. It's like new money versus old money. And I actually cast an Asian actress for Veronica in my main version. So there is a light touch institutional racism conversation happening as well in that. And so, which I think is, I kind of like the idea that the carrot is dangled that she can be one of the cool kids without there ever being any real intention of her being one of the cool kids. It's just to get her to do stuff. And
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely wanted to kind of embolden that conversation a little bit by having a person of color as the main character, and just like blonde white girls as the Heathers. I mean, keep that same kind of trope there from the original, and just kind of use that to inform kind of the cultural and class clash that is happening at the school that's causing these issues.
I think I took more of the essence of each of their demeanors, and then for some reason I was just really inspired by particular actors that I thought would kind of grab that. And they're kind of known for roles that are similar. And of course, given a cubicle setting, the possibilities are endless. So anything that they've done in Heathers, whether it's the lunchtime poll, that can instantly be a Facebook poll since everybody's on social media during the day. So I kind of found parallels. The Remington party isn't a college party; it's a networking event because they're all in a cubicle. So everything just sort of has a little skew to, hey, we're a little older, so this would be the setting, sort of thing.
I did the social media thing as well because I thought about the weird choice in Heathers that she can just magically do everybody's handwriting perfectly. It's a weird choice. I get why they do for the plot, but it just doesn't seem. It's a little clunky. And with social media, I figured that a better way to go about it is that the reason Veronica's kind of kept around by the Heathers is that she got the Wi-Fi password, like to change the settings of the Wi-Fi in the school, which allowed her access to people's social media logins if they use the Wi-Fi to log in. So she has access to like most of the students' Facebooks and stuff that they can go in and look at private stuff on their Facebook, their messages, that kind of thing. So
phenomenal hacker.
Base level hacking in this, but very reasonable expectation for like a teenager to be able to do the kind of thing hacking. And so that's the real motivation for the Heathers to like kind of pull her into their group, is that she has this access that is intense, which then instead of leaving the letter for the quote unquote suicide, it's a Facebook post.
Exactly.
Stuff like that allows you to still have that same conversation, but in a more modern kind of way.
I did the same. Yeah, I did the same thing. Just tried to find those parallels.
Yep. For those unfamiliar with how we do Smack My Pitch Up, we have a real take, a version that we think might work the best. We're actually making casting choices, directing choices based on things we think might actually work if you were to do a reboot or remake. Then we have our remix version, which is just a kind of wide open, outside the box, weird take. It might be so weird that it works, but oftentimes it's just a choice that maybe some producer somewhere would make and then get fired immediately after the movie tanks.
But it'd be great if you had a nice stash of green stuff and you could pack it real tight.
That's if I could only get financing to do really weird choice remakes of movies for like low budget, and that would just be my entire career path. I would be so down for that. So producers, if you're listening, give me money. Let me realize my dreams of like a John Waters He-Man movie or my I want that one so bad. That's one of my favorites that we've done.
Oh my.
So for your real take, for your real version, who do you have as your director?
I chose, is it Ryan Johnson? Ryan Johnson?
Ryan Johnson. Yeah.
From Knives Out.
Okay.
I chose Ryan from Knives Out. I've seen it so many times already. It's on Amazon right now for free. There's just, I love Wes Anderson as a director, but obviously he's so stylized and it's so just in your face, which has its time and place, but it is just the Wes Anderson show. What I liked about Knives Out is it still had beautiful shots and beautiful character and lots of texture, but it wasn't, completely affected. It was just really, I liked it.
Sure. And with Wes Anderson, there is kind of that underlying demented tone that goes along, and Ryan Johnson does have that at Knives Out as well. It's just, it's a little bit, it doesn't have that special seasoning flavor that is every single Wes Anderson movie tastes the same. It has the same elements that give it that kind of whimsical, waspy approach to the demented humor.
But he also directed some Breaking Bad as well. So, he can get gritty. He can get, into kind of the underbelly of things as well.
Well, and before he did, of course, people are familiar with him doing The Last Jedi, but before that, he also did the, was it Brick? I think he did, which I'm double checking. I think that was Ryan Johnson, which was a Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie that was very gritty.
That's so funny you mentioned him. We'll get there.
I love me some JGL. I get picked on for it
Oh
sometimes.
yeah.
I love Ryan Johnson. I think he's a great director. I think he's versatile as a director as well. I don't think he has one gear that he directs under.
Yeah, I don't think he's really. I mean, he clearly has a perspective, which is nice, but it's not like something you look at and go, "Oh, yeah, that's Ryan Johnson." Clearly, clearly, and it's not overly saturated. It's just, yeah, he's got a perspective,
Hmm.
and you dig it, and it's gritty, and I like it.
Yeah, this is a kind of a modern noir movie, Brick, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That is Ryan Johnson directed that. He also did Looper, which is
Looper
a
was okay.
very fun movie.
That is okay. So I didn't even know that, but that's great. So I was clearly on the right beam with this. This is great.
It means it's kismet that these people
Yeah.
are supposed to be working together. Okay, so we got Ryan Johnson, which, yeah, great with an ensemble piece, clearly with Knives Out. And
Just the banter, and obviously, I mean, we don't talk about the writer, but clearly just directing it well enough that just if there's supposed to be a gap, it's the perfect length where you're either supposed to be uncomfortable or it's just long enough that you're back on board or
Mhm.
whatever. I mean, it's just that takes a real gift, and he's got it.
Nice. I think that's a great choice. I'd be really interested to see what Ryan Johnson would do. I love that he's made these big expansive movies like The Last Jedi and Looper that are like world building. And then you get something like Knives Out where it's so very tiny as a movie. There's mainly just the house that's the set, and then
Yeah.
there's a couple other sets. But it
Oh,
but it he is able to fill those spaces with so much information and wealth of character development that you don't really recognize how few sets are actually in that movie.
I agree.
Yeah. So, okay. So Ryan Johnson. For
Mhm.
mine, I really wanted to have this conversation of Heather's with like a woman's voice to make sure that it was coming from the perspective of girls really can be this evil when they're teenagers. I mean, just the hormones running wild, and it can get a little wacky to the point of maybe murder, but also have
Leading cause of divorce.
yeah,
Just
right.
say.
And then also, I wanted to, still have that whimsy to it, still have fun with that conversation, dark but funny. And I was absolutely blown away with Booksmart when that came out.
I don't know this one.
Booksmart, I believe it's on Hulu right now. It's a
Okay.
kind of coming of age movie. These two, young women are looking at colleges where they're going. They're best friends, and also conversations about relationships. One's gay, one's straight. They're talking about like the boys and the girls that they like and that they're into. There's like school parties, and they're not like the nerds that get picked on by everybody, but they're not like the cool kids either. There's some
Sure.
kind of in between area, and it's wickedly funny. It's dark in places. An incredibly well written movie and great acting. And I have a couple of the Booksmart actors in my versions as well.
Okay.
That was directed by actress Olivia Wilde.
You are kidding.
Yeah, she absolutely did Booksmart. She's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I know her from House, of course, and then there was a movie about her, The Drinking Buddies. There was
I've seen Drinking Buddies.
something similar. So it's not. I mean, it's definitely in the realm that she could do indie for sure, and be a little offbeat. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I thoroughly suggest if you have not had a chance to enjoy Booksmart,
Yeah.
it's wonderfully honest. It is heartwarming, but also it doesn't kind of pull its punches from like the dumb crap that people argue about and get all up in arms over. I
Mhm.
very much enjoyed it, and what kind of made me enjoy it more than anything else is that it was clearly not for me. Like a dude in his late 30s is not like their main focus for that movie, but it didn't ignore me either. Like I didn't feel like I wasn't supposed to be watching it. Like it was purely a good movie in its own right. It's like kids movies where the adults still enjoy it. That's kind of how I felt with Booksmart, is that this was written for women, period, and especially like younger women that, or maybe older women that are recognizing that time when they were in high school that they behaved that way. And but it didn't shut me out. And
That's
I
great.
really liked that.
Okay.
So Olivia Wilde is my director for Heathers, to be able to have that kind of conversation about women and about how they interact with one another and the competition and the drive. And I'm really interested to see what she would do with something like Heathers, where it's a little bit darker than Booksmart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for your Ryan Johnson version, if you want to kind of go down your list of cast of characters.
Yes, yes. So Veronica, I chose Kristen Ritter.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Just a little homage to Winona with sort of the dark hair, fair skin. Um, but I loved her. I love her in everything. Jessica Jones, The
Hmm.
Bee, in Apartment 23. Just so she's versatile. I feel like she has a little bit of a hard shell, but she's not a total stone cold, bitch. So she can be torn, where she wants to be with the clique, but she
Yep.
still has a conscience.
And
So
she can still has pretty good comedic timing for being able to like be it like straight faced with the material and still just hit the timing right to make it funny.
and still deliver it.
Yeah.
Yes. Heather number one, which was, sort of the ringleader. I chose Ali Wong, and she is, stone cold. And like I said, they're a little older now.
Hmm.
And so, Allie's actually married. She's in a very unhappy marriage. And so this makes her very bitchy and very just focused on her work
Hmm.
and just sort of the ringleader. And if I'm going to be miserable, I want everybody else to be miserable. and she just sort of becomes the ringleader for everybody.
No, I like that because it informs that there is a reason why these women are heinous. It's not just cuz. There's not mustache twirling happening. Yeah.
Exactly. So she's trying to climb the corporate ladder because she just doesn't want to be at home.
Fair. Okay.
Heather to Blake Lively.
I love Blake.
And it was seeing her in A Simple Favor that it did it for me.
I've been told by several people now that that was pretty solid. That's with was it Anna Kendrick?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's nice. It's nice. It's not mind blowing. It's not riveting, but it is great. And just seeing her in these sharp suits and yeah. So Heather number two was a little more affable. She was the cheerleader. She
Hmm.
was just kind of like, I want people to like me. And her story is she's just lonely. She just hasn't found anybody, and so she's just kind of following people around like, I want you to like me, and I've got this emptiness, and
Hmm.
that kind of what drives her. Heather number three, I chose Aubrey Plaza.
I was dancing around Aubrey Plaza, but she was a little too old for my version. For your version, she's perfect.
Yeah.
But for my version, she was just like, aged out a little too much, and I couldn't pull the trigger. But
Yeah.
great choice, fantastic choice. One of my
Yeah,
first thoughts.
not 100% vapid, but we don't know a whole lot about her. We know she wants to belong. We know, she's just following everybody else. We know she doesn't have any initiative of her own. But again, just as Shannon Doherty was, you didn't quite hate her, but you certainly didn't like her. She was just kind of there.
She was kind of the Heather that was there to be dumped on a little bit. That
Yeah. Oh, very much so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she
In croquet.
yeah, especially in croquet. But she just she was there to kind of take all the ridicule, was to get all the blame placed on her when things didn't go right, or that character, and
Mhm.
to the point where I felt kind of bad for that Heather.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see a lot of Aubrey Plaza's eye rolls, is what I want to see.
Yes.
JD, I chose Ryan Gosling.
Oh, of course, because Ryan Gosling.
All good things, crazy stupid love. He's in the tailored suit since, they're in the office, so he's in the tailored suit. He is the man's man. He is, but he's just got this bitterness and
Mhm.
this this angst that he has got to unleash.
A little American Psycho vibes a bit.
I just thought of that as I was saying it exactly.
Nice.
Martha Dumptruck, I kind of contorted her character a little bit. She's definitely the one that everyone dumps on, and she's sort of sad. But in the office, she's actually the aged out boss, which is why she gets teased. It's not that she's overweight or people or that. It's just a different reason why she is ostracized, and it's because she's older, she's a boss, she's a relic. And I thought of Jane Lynch for that one.
Okay. I love Jane Lynch so much. She is so
Oh,
funny.
and I just thought if it's just scenes with her, she could be really quippy and find power when she can. But when she's presented with this group of jackals, that's just out to get her, I could totally see her being slightly vulnerable in the moment. And it would still be really funny.
Nice.
She's great. I really like her.
Yeah.
Kurt and Ram. So this is where the tie-in comes in. Kurt would be Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Ram would be Donald Glover.
Nice.
I think those two just skulking around the water cooler or the break room or a happy hour networking event. I think the two of them, you would just, the whole time you'd be watching it, you'd just be like, get the fuck out of here, guys. They would just be awful.
I kind of love the idea of them playing as like the tag team duo, kind of Glenn Ross vibes to them, where they're like the outside salespeople that are just kind of douchebags, and everybody deals with them because they're the ones that have to go deal with the clients, and they make all the money, so everybody just has to.
It's so cool you say that, because as I was thinking of this, I'm like, well, what business would they be in? I was thinking lawyers, but that's a little easy. And I thought something in sales, and that's exactly what I thought. I was like, these guys would be on the top of the list for sales every month. So you can't deny they're doing something right, but they're just awful people.
Just awful. Like, they take their clients out to like steak dinners and drinks and stuff to come back to the office hammered, saying inappropriate things. Everybody deals with it because they sell enough that you can't justify getting rid of them. It would be too much of a dump in the sales.
Sounds like a job I had in San Francisco a long time ago with commercial real estate brokers. They would go wine and dine people at lunch and come back and get grabby.
Oh, no.
Like, I'm sorry, I get drug tested for what I do on the weekend, but this is okay?
Yeah,
Are you
right?
kidding me?
Just hammered at work.
I mean, come on. And then the last main character I had, and I have some additional ideas. The last main character was Betty, was the childhood friend that wanted to, kind of reconnect with Veronica. And I thought Mindy Kaling. Because
Nice.
especially from late night, because she's just so affable. Like she just is, she's got the kindest heart, and she wants everybody around her to succeed. And she really believes in herself, even though she has a few doubts. She has her dream and she wants to go for it. So I just thought Mindy Kaling, and again, I really wanted to create a colorful cast as well, given current time, the current time and landscape. So I thought she'd be a good one to just constantly pop in of like, hey, I made your favorite cookie from when we were 12. And everyone's like, okay.
When talk about somebody that can fill an entire scene with their personality. Mindy Kaling is just this big, bright, burning star of a personality. So her coming in, even with a smaller role, would be able to just absolutely destroy at it.
I agree. And then I thought for periphery characters, people who are just sort of known in this world, definitely Catherine O'Hara, sort of embodying her Beetlejuice character. Just, she's in The Office too. She dresses, very postmodern, and she's just cold and she's a bitch, but she's got great lines, of course. And a little bit of Moira from Schitt's Creek,
of course.
For the high art. I would love to see Parker Posey, just from The House of Yes. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have not seen House of Yes, but I am very familiar with Parker Posey, and I can see her kind of even going for the throne of the Heather throne at some point herself, but just not having the tools necessary, something like that.
I would love to see Neil Patrick Harris. I would love to see him deliver just bitingly awful, just irreparable comments where you just see those dimples and that hair, and you know him for who he is, and then you just hear something sadistic come out of his mouth.
Yes.
I would love. And then the other two would be James Franco and Bill Murray. Just somehow need to be in there, whether it's JD's roommate or they're just affiliated somehow.
Sure.
And I was thinking of Bill Murray from St. Vincent when he's just
doing whatever the hell he wants to in that movie. I loved it. Nothing like Bill Murray beating up a young, like 12-year-old skateboarder to really get your day going.
This is how you want to make his nose bleed. Yeah, and I thought of certain parallels, like instead of cow tipping, maybe they tease the homeless, when they leave the office building, and there are people out on the streets. So it's like, yeah, man, you got to get in on this, and take their cardboard box, or kick them a little bit, or say something horrible. So there's always some sort of equivalent to what Heather's had that we can bring sort of to current time, or sort of an urban environment.
I think though, no, I agree completely, and I think that's a very doable thing. But comparing like tipping cows to like, I don't know, paying bums to fight each other is
maybe that's it. Yeah, we need to take it. I clearly didn't go enough steps. Yeah, actually, that's great. Yeah.
That I feel like the bums fighting each other part is probably a little more drastic than the cow tipping. The cow tipping, like, I think. Well, no, the cows can die if you tip them, right? Isn't that a thing?
Well, I thought so.
I don't know. I've never tipped a cow. Listeners, if you've tipped a cow, please write in, email us, whatever, and let us know if they die or if they just get up and they're like, that sucked, and then they move on with their lives.
The hazards of cow
Yeah,
tipping.
I really do not know.
There was always a phrase they used in Heather's, how very, where they were
Hmm.
just sort of, and I thought we could replace that with how savvy,
Nice.
it's still got that shitty tone, but a nice contemporary word.
Oh, or Savvy is perfect, but if you wanted to do a call to another teen revenge movie, you
Uh-huh.
could have Fetch actually happening.
Oh, yes.
Just use it
Yeah.
throughout. Nobody questions it. It's totally used. And yeah,
Possibilities are endless, I tell
absolutely.
you.
All right. So for my Olivia Wilde version of Heather's, I've got my cast of character here. First off is Veronica. I need somebody with a sharp wit, real good comedic timing, and an actress that I've seen in a few things that I really want to see in a lot more stuff is Maya Erskine. And,
Yes.
she was in Pen 15 where she plays like a 15-year. She was like 32, but she looks very young and she plays young very well. And so I think she can pull it off. She is great in Pen 15, has this terrible bowl cut. I think she has braces in it. It's just so awkward and wonderful. And then on the other end of it, she's in a romantic comedy called Plus One with Dennis Quaid's kid.
Oh, who is that one? Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Uh, from The Boys. He's been in a bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
Their chemistry is fantastic. Her comedic timing is absolutely great. She's so quirky and fun and weird in that movie. It's a lot of fun to watch them kind of bouncing off of each other.
hmm
So that's going to be my Veronica, and she's her moved into town in the not in recent times. Her family's like relatively new money from like a .com or software development, something like that.
Sounds
And
right.
yeah, and then comes into just like old money, wealthy white neighborhood, and with a private Catholic school that all the neighborhood kids go to. And then we've got JD, who's also a brand new transplant. He just got there, and I wanted somebody that charming, but not in that like douchey waspy kind of way, in kind of a like a quirky, I go my own way vibe.
Oh,
I decided to go with Joe Keery from Stranger Things.
oh, right.
Yeah, he's got that fantastic hair
Yes.
that is totally an access point for people making fun of him, like the jocks coming over and teasing him and calling him names and homophobic slurs, and
Mhm.
him having that fantastic hair could totally be the lead in for that conversation, and also separating him from the people that have like slick back hair or just like normal parts or just the normal affluent haircut styles.
It's the hard part now, Mike. The hard part.
Oh, I've been told that parts and hairs have changed or something. And also, apparently, like skinny jeans aren't a thing anymore.
Oh, they're out. Okay.
They're
And
out. If you wear skinny jeans and do a side part, then they know that you're. Then the Zoomers, the Gen Zs, like know that you're a millennial or later or something. I don't know.
and we're totally over the man bun at this point, right? Except for soccer players.
God, I hope so. I really, or maybe like cooks. If you
Right.
have long hair and you can totally put it up while you're working, that's fine. But
Please.
ugh. So Joe Keery as JD. So charming, kind of aloof, but can go, can go for it when he needs to.
I dig it.
And I'd love to see just that turn of him being the like charming, kind of like bopping around, just fun, happy-go-lucky kind of dude, and then just that hard turn into the ulterior motive kind of leaking out.
Yes.
Then we've got Heather Duke, which was what's her face, Donna from
Shannon Doherty. Hmm.
Shannon Doherty, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, the Shannon Doherty Heather. I decided to go with one of the two main girls from Booksmart, Caitlin Deaver. She's also in a series called Dope Sick, which is currently filming
Filming right here
in Richmond. Yeah, she's in that as well, and so she might be bopping around Richmond for all I know right now.
Right.
But she is fantastic. She is of the two friends. She is the lesbian friend that came out like a year before. that's not even really a focus on the movie, which I love also, aside from that there's a girl that she likes. That's the only thing. That's not part of the story. It's just an aside that she happens to be. And I love that that's happening more and more, that there's representation of just characters that happen to be. I love it.
I mean, that's the beauty of Schitt's Creek.
Exactly.
There was no coming out. There's nobody that has an issue with it. It just is. Thankfully, it just is.
Beautiful. It's beautiful for many reasons, but that is definitely one of them for Schitt's Creek. And
what if we see her in Richmond? What if we approached her and said, "Hey, we have a video camera. You want to come hang out in our
right. Hey, come back to my apartment so I can film you." Yeah, that's I don't know how well, like, there's a chubby bearded dude coming up to her like, "Hey, I liked you in Booksmart. Come back to my apartment." I don't know. That's all that smart. It's bad enough I was talking on another show that we do, my girlfriend and I do, Deeply Upsetting.
Yeah.
And I was talking about search terms that we use for Smack My Pitch Up that I have before on like a work laptop typed in like young boys 14 to 16. And went like, oh, no, okay, no, out of context, that sounds real bad.
Incognito window.
You're right. Yeah.
Incognito window.
Although depending on if they're doing any kind of like keystroke recordings or anything, that's worse if I put on the incognito window and then search for that's
true.
It's a bit much, but
think ahead. Yeah.
So we'll see. It's any day now. I'll be fired for being a giant creep. So okay, so Caitlin Deaver from Booksmart, from Dope Sick, that is Heather that's kind of picked on a little bit. Then we go on to Heather Chandler. That's the leader. That's the head Heather.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to go with Florence Pugh for the head Heather. If you're unfamiliar, she's in Don't Worry, Darling, which is a new Olivia Wilde movie that's coming out relatively soon. So that's the connection with the director. But additionally, she was in Little Women as Amy, the new Little Women.
She's striking.
Oh, she's very striking. She was in Midsummer as the main.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Twisted. Yes.
And also, as far as comedic timing goes, she was in Fighting with My Family.
Yes.
Which had Nick Frost in it, about just a wrestling family and one of them going on to join the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie, I was really surprised at how emotional it was. It's a WWE movie. I wasn't expecting to have feelings.
They got you here, and then they got you here.
Exactly. Before they gave me an elbow drop, they gave me my heart elbow drop.
Right.
But she was great in that. She was great in Little Women. Incredible actress. Real solid acting chops for her age. That I think would just knock it out of the park as just this smarmy, like just shitty, self-important, just fully privileged character.
The teen ice queen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we've got the second in charge Heather, the cheerleader, the one that wants to be liked. I decided to go with a actress that we've seen grow up on screen, but is now like weirdly in her early 20s, which makes me very uncomfortable. Not in a like attractive way so much as that, like, no, you're always going to be 10 in my brain. Right. Is Maude Apatow.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Judd Apatow's daughter that's been in a bunch of his movies. Yep. But she's struck out on her own. She's currently, I believe, still in the series Euphoria.
Okay.
That has Zendaya in it as the main character. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible show. Fantastic show. It's rough though. I mean, it's about like teen like drug abuse and sex, and it's a very, very dark show.
Okay.
So from Knocked Up to Euphoria is kind of a hard turn.
Mm-hmm.
But I think giving her different types of roles at this point in her career can only be helpful.
Yeah, that she doesn't. She's early 20s.
I think she's like 22 or 23, around that. So perfect time for her to kind of really show off what she's capable of doing as an actor. And I think she's clearly got comedic timing. So that's great. Mm-hmm. But she's got to be able to do the dramatic stuff. She's got to be able to play bitchy characters and fun characters and just kind of fill it out a little bit more. And I think she'd do great with this character as kind of an entranceway into being the bitchy character, quote unquote.
Yes. And we need to know where she's coming from. As I said, with that's what I like about these other characters is you kind of know what their home life is.
Hmm.
So yeah, she's just got to be able to portray that. Well, clearly she's alone at home and she's desperate for attention, and it's just got to be obvious. Yeah.
When especially Olivia Wilde, the way that she deftly took care of her characters in Booksmart, so you fully understood them, even when they were being kind of shitty to one another. You understood the intention. It all came from a good place, and it just got misconstrued or something. There were no like villains, quote unquote.
Right.
Even people that acted shitty, they weren't villains. They weren't twirling their mustaches and saying how much they love to do evil.
Right.
And so you got to even the head Heather, even Florence Pugh, who is the worst character in there. You have to understand the motivations.
You've got to humanize them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I've got two more casting choices here, and that's the football brothers, the Kurt and Ram characters here. For those, they're kind of interchangeable as far as like who you would cast for either one. They're just like the two-dimensional jockey dudes.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah, pretty much. I decided to go with, now this is really fun for me, the choices that I made. These are two characters that actually played love interests with one another in another movie.
Okay.
The two characters I got, Kurt Kelly, I got Keaton Lonsdale to play Kurt, and he is Kid Flash in the Flash series. But he's also in Love, Simon, which is a very sweet story about a kid that's gay. I think his family knows he's gay, but the school doesn't, and he gets accidentally outed, and he's been like sending emails back and forth with this other kid in the school that is afraid to come out, and he's trying to figure out who it is, and that's kind of the plot. It's an adorable movie, very cute. And the two love interests are Keaton Lonsdale is the kid that eventually he meets later in the movie, and Nick Robinson is Simon. Nice. That's the main character, so he's going to be Ram. Yep. So I thought it'd be funny to, jocks.
He's got those James Franco eyes.
He does. He was also the older brother in Jurassic World when that came out. So I think he can play. He could do the douchey jock thing, but it's clearly there's more than that going on. And so I could see that being used by other people as like, I always knew he was gay kind of attitudes about it. And but I also thought it would be kind of fun to cast two characters that were love interests with each other in another movie, who were gay in that movie, to play jocks that were kind of accused of being gay or like being
a great homage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect homage. Yeah.
So those are my castings that I did for my Olivia Wilde version of Heather's. So I want it to be charming. I want it to be dark though. I mean, it's gonna absolutely be dark. And I think the couple things that was a challenge to me was the gun scene. You can't have it just because he'd get kicked out of school immediately.
And it's just too sensitive. It's just, it doesn't sit well with people. You don't want them to dislike the characters that much.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we know we want them to be disliked, but that crosses the line into the kind of the fourth wall of yikes. That's way too realistic.
Way too real. So with that, I thought doing some sort of, I don't know, like this is how disconnected with the youth I am on what the youth's like. But I was like, they can like, I don't know, have like a Tide Pod eating contest or like do the flip bottle thing. And then he flips a bottle, but he like throws it at their head or something. But nobody's doing that stuff anymore, though. So that's me. I heard it a couple years ago and went, well, that's just what kids do now. And that's not true. So, but some sort of weird competition thing that he turns to end up getting them, the football players almost injured and not be able to play the game would be something justifying a week suspension, not pulling a gun with blanks in them. That's
kids will be kids now. Well, one of my throwbacks was instead of the croquet scene, it was frisbee golf.
Yes, frisbee golf, perfect. But I think back to like what you got in trouble for or didn't get in trouble for over the years, and I heard stories from my mom's generation about them partying and like drinking and driving. The cops would catch them, and they'd be like, "You go right home now," like that, like all kids will be kids. There was just not this attitude of like, oh, you might end up killing people.
Literally, or yourself. As late as 90, I'm going to say 92, 93. I definitely don't even think I was 21 yet. I got pulled several times. I should not have been driving, and they would say, "Well, you're only a few miles away, so just take it
Yeah,
easy."
right.
I have no earthly idea how I'm not responsible for, yeah, the death of someone or
Yeah.
myself.
So it's one of those things that you see how different time has changed, and in a lot of ways for the good. But pulling a gun in school just does not work. It was a similar conversation that we had when we did a remake of The Breakfast Club. Is that
Oh,
there was a conversation that he
that is.
brought a flare gun to school.
Oh, right. Okay.
Was the
That was
thing.
Anthony Michael
Yeah,
Hall.
Anthony
Right,
Michael
right.
Hall, and
I
that.
was thinking Emilio with his butt cheeks being taped to, or
Oh,
him
right.
taping the butt cheeks.
But yeah, he got Saturday school for bringing a flare gun to school, and I'm like, yeah, it's a flare gun, but also like, no, like you're expelled. Sorry, bro. Like that's
Okay.
how today would handle it. So we
Hmm.
had to kind of change that format a little bit. So I think just some kind of dumb kid competition thing is the
Yeah.
best way to do that. Make the jocks look like assholes and possibly injure themselves, and cool.
Mhm.
Then you got your suspension.
Well, I thought for the office scene, being in an office, it would definitely be a team meeting in a conference room, and it would be someone has uh, faked an email that was sent, so someone else is being pegged for this horrific email that just either takes down the company or implicates like their boss as an adulterer, or just this scandalous, scathing email. And it was one of the Heathers that got behind someone else's computer and sent it. And so they totally pin it on somebody else.
Oh man.
Their downfall.
Yeah. Damn. Nice. Now, this is where it gets weird because we are about to get into our remix versions of Heather's here. So, I just a reminder, this isn't stuff that we think will actually work. It's just a fun mental game of like figuring out what would it look like if it was like this. So, for your remix version, are you keeping it as like a dark comedy? Are you changing the genre? Are you changing the time period? Is it a cyberpunk future, Heather's? Like, what are we doing with your version here?
We are giving a nod to a classic television show that ran 7 seasons.
Okay.
Um, and time frame could certainly be current, but we are definitely skewing the age by a long shot.
Okay.
Um, and so I thought we could equate it to the Golden Girls.
Yes. That is amazing. Especially with the news that Golden Girls is about to drop on Disney Plus pretty soon here.
Well,
So
I've had it on DVD for a long
there
time.
we go. I unapologetically love the Golden Girls. Like unironically, just straight up, like so adorable.
It is amazing. And so, of course, they're crotchety, they're just grumpy with everything. And they have decided that they are so old and they have nothing to lose that they're just going to start taking it out on everyone around them. um, yes, I don't know if you want me to do the casting, the quick just
Yeah,
equation.
yeah. Let's just shoot through the casting real quick.
All right, so I chose Sophia for Veronica, but she actually has a little past. She actually has kind of a past of being a hitman, and so you know how Sophia always used to say, "Picture it, Sicily." Veronica gets to say, "Picture it," and she'll tell you about a job that she's done, like someone she's whacked.
Oh
Sort of thing.
Jesus. Okay.
So she's no stranger to it. And then, of course, the coldest Heather, I chose Dorothy just because she's got that deadpan. B. Arthur has
Mhm.
that deadpan phase and can deliver anything just with that tone. Heather number two would be Blanche. She sleeps with everyone. She's, kind of equating the stereotypical cheerleader that just is kind of with everybody. So Blanche is, of course, just trolling the old folks' homes and bumping into old men at the grocery store and just trying to make it happen. And then Heather number three would be Rose, where she's just like sweet and
Oh
doesn't really know
no.
what's going on. But you'd be surprised. I mean, because Betty White does have a great dark sense of humor and she can be really crass. So we get to see that just a little bit where she kind of comes out with some dirty lines.
I do love this like old people version of Heather's of just the idea of like competition with one another and being crotchety and picky and
Oh.
like how much that changes how much you take them seriously when they're like on the other side of life. Not
Mhm.
teenagers, but they're in their say 70s and 80s. It changes
Mhm.
kind of that they could be actively trying to murder one another and people would be like, that's adorable. I love old people that are crotchety or something and they're trying to murder each other.
And you know what I just realized is, Heather's, they're so young they don't get the repercussions of what they're doing, maybe. They probably haven't lost anyone close. They don't have that reverence for life yet because they're too young. Whereas these women have seen it and done it all. So that's why they don't have a reverence, because they just know, what are they going to do? Put me in jail for the next 2 years until I die in a cell or something?
Yeah, right.
I mean, they've all got cyanide pills in their jewelry box they're about to break out if the shit goes down.
I've always wondered why there aren't more like elderly retirees just doing crime, just lots of old people crime. Because if you're like 96 years old and you can still get around okay, I'm robbing a bank. Like what are they gonna do? Like I've got 6 months to live. So do you want to be the jerk that puts a 96-year-old behind bars?
I know. I hope it's a televised hearing, because I want to see that for sure. Yeah, there's so many incidents where, just things that normally irritate old people, instead of them just complaining about it, they actually take action. So they can trip people with their canes and their walkers. They can dose an early bird special with X-Lax or Viagra. They can, they're on it. Yeah.
If you're doing old people, you got to do a Viagra joke in there somewhere. That could be like something that's mixed in instead of the Drano or something. And
right. Exactly.
Along those lines.
Something that they know. They all know their medications well, so they will know what'll have an adverse reaction to somebody who's got a condition. So
right.
They'll serve them as little petit fours, and next thing you know, someone's on the ground.
Well, there are some things that you can't take if you use Viagra. I remember that from some romantic comedy starring Jack Nicholson, where it's the one.
Oh, right, with Amanda Peet, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Yes, and they said, "Have you taken it?" And he's like, "Oh, absolutely not." And then they say, "Well, it could cause this if you've taken this." And then he's like, "Okay." Yep. Like, leave the room. This is, yeah.
So yeah, if you're doing like old people trying to get it on, you got to have a Viagra joke. It's, I think, a rule somewhere.
Yeah. And we all know that venereal diseases run rampant in the old folks' homes down in Florida.
I found that out a couple years ago, and I thought somebody was joking. Then I looked into it, and it's 100% true. Just lousy with gonorrhea. Just, old people
just chance of pregnancy.
Yeah, right. Just, if you're 80 and you're still wanting to get down, like everybody in that old folks home is probably like, yeah, sure, fuck it, why not?
Elmer's barebacking it, and it's
right. Like, oh no, yeah, it's a close community. Probably just being like, it's cool, we've all got the clap. It's not,
and I'm giving it to you.
Give it to you. That's our entry fee into the old people orgy that's happening here. All right, so that is your Golden Girls version.
Yeah, and then Stan would be JD. There weren't many male characters. Stan was just sort of the staple, was Dorothy's ex. And so, of course, there's a toupee joke in there somewhere. So
nice. For me, I decided to kind of play with, as much as I liked the idea of Olivia Wilde doing this, because she is thoughtful about her characters, and especially female characters, and properly representative and of different backgrounds and cultures, and really smart modern style director. I wanted to kind of go the other end with my remix and have a director that just, all the women are basically cartoon characters in his movies. He is just like all style, no substance with the way that he directs. It's a running joke that he's just an awesomely bad director, that there's movies that are truly enjoyable that he's done, but they're not realistic. Like it's basically a live action cartoon of action comedy movies that he does. This is the director of Charlie's Angels 1 and 2.
Oh yes, McG.
McG. Yep.
McG.
Did The Babysitter and Babysitter 2. I forget the name of the second one on Netflix. Did Terminator Salvation also, weirdly, but he's a known quantity as just wacky.
Guilty pleasure.
Oh yeah, total
pleasure. Yes.
Big, dumb, fun action comedy kind of stuff. So it could still very much be a fun movie, but it's just not going to be tonally anywhere close to the original. Mm-hmm. These characters are just wide open characters.
I love it.
Just incredibly crazy ways that people die in this movie. There's probably a lot more fire and explosions that happen.
And there needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Great.
So Mick G directing a Heathers remake. With Veronica, I went with a new actress that hit the scene. Hasn't been in a lot of stuff. You may know her as Ted's daughter in Bill and Ted Face the Music. Is the big role that she played. Is Bridget Lundy Payne.
Okay, don't know her yet. Okay.
She played Keanu Reeves's daughter in the last Bill and Ted movie that just came out. And she was great. She was able to really nail a lot of the mannerisms that Ted had.
Very unique looking.
Very unique looking. So that kind of in this two-dimensional version of Heathers, because Mick G is not spending time trying to flesh out these people. Even like she's still very pretty, but she's got a very unique look. That can be enough to kind of separate her from the other Heathers. So
her face itself is almost just a character. Yeah.
And then we've got JD, the love interest, and I played with a lot of different ideas for this character, for the love interest. And then I remembered that I recently watched a movie with a great young actor that is the right age group for the character, and I think could really nail it. Kyle Allen. He was in a movie recently called Map of Tiny Perfect Things. It just dropped on Amazon Prime recently, and it's basically like a teen comedy version of Groundhog Day. Yeah. So it's like this kid that's played by Kyle Allen. He ends up waking up the same day over and over again, and then he runs into a girl his age that is going through the same thing. So they end up kind of teaming up, but not getting romantic, because then it would get weird if they're the only two people that remember that it's the same day every day. But then there's clearly feelings happening, and then of course teen comedy ensues. He's great. He's super charming. He's got like a slightly jockey vibe, but in that kind of like alternative skateboarder kind of jockey vibe, not like football player. Good looking dude. I think he would have a lot of fun playing this just wide open, like psychopath boyfriend character from Heathers. Then we've got Heather Duke, that was the dumped on one, the Donna of the group.
the bottom ring.
And I went with somebody that was actually in Booksmart as well, even though this is the Mick G version, because I think Mick G would make kind of choices that the dumped on Heather would be a bigger girl, would be like the girl that like takes all the flack, and like there is something clearly two-dimensionally separating her from the other two Heathers as well. She's there to just compliment them all the time and be around as just like this kind of yipping dog around the bulldog in a cartoon character. And I went with a fantastic actress, Beanie Feldstein, who's also in Don't Worry, Darling, which is that new movie coming out from Olivia Wilde. Booksmart, was in What We Do in the Shadows as well.
Oh, that's where I know her. Okay, yeah.
She was, I think it's Jeannie or something. She was a college girl that ended up becoming a vampire. Throughout the series. If you haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows, the series, it is phenomenal. So much fun.
It's really good. Her face has character too. You did a great job. I mean, she's striking. It's her mouth. You know, she just has a very animated mouth when she's smiling and laughing when I look at pictures. So yeah, you did a great job.
I think she'd be really fun in that role as Heather Duke. Then we've got the ringleader, the head Heather Chandler. I decided to go with a actress that has absolutely played the mean girl before and will nail this no problem, and especially even exaggerated, would be able to do it from her time on American Horror Story and Scream Queens. Emma Roberts. It's like a part that she was born to play almost.
I finally watched Coven just for the first time this year, and I was just blown away at how icy that woman can be.
Oh, yeah.
I should say young lady. I was just blown away at how icy she could be.
She kills it.
Yeah.
And then we got Heather Mcnamara, the cheerleader type. And I decided to go with an actress that has worked with Mick G before, was the love interest in the first Babysitter movie, and was the kind of villain in the second one. Emily Allen Lind is the name of the actress, and she's got a very interesting look as well. Just a kind of a interesting facial shape. Very pretty young lady, but just very unique. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to see like the different shapes and sizes of, a unique looking people for all these different characters, except for the main Heather. That is just that classic blonde look,
she's got the Cupid face with like the heart chin. Like
Hmm.
she is, yeah.
She looks, yeah, Cupid is right. That's exactly the kind of look she has, which very beautiful, but it's not the like modern classic beautiful facial shape, really. So,
Mm-hmm. Oh, good choices.
and then we've got for Kurt Kelly, one of the football jocks. I decided to go with an actor that I've loved in a few things, but you may know him from Percy Jackson movies, the Percy Jackson
Yeah,
movies,
the lightning thief. Yeah.
and The Lightning Thief, and also Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was one of my favorite books growing up in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Logan Lerman as the actor.
Yes.
And I think he'd have a lot of fun playing just this over the top, super goofy caricature of a jockey football player.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've
Mm-hmm.
got Ram, that I decided to go with the jockey douchebag from Euphoria. He plays Nate in the show Euphoria with Zendaya and company,
Okay.
and also is in all three of the Kissing Booth movies. I guess I I guess I think he's the love interest in all three of those. I'm not sure, but Jacob Elordi is the name of the actor, and he's good looking, athletic, just kind of like middle America looking, pretty boy jock type
See
dude.
him.
So,
Yes. He's Australian.
oh, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm learning in your free time you watch a lot of teen rom-coms.
That is a secret between you and me and the audience that is listening to this episode.
And everyone who's listening.
Again, one of those things that, for some people, it would be acceptable to watch all three Kissing Booth movies. For a chubby bearded dude in his late 30s sitting in his underwear watching Kissing Booth 2, meaning that I'm familiar with the first one and decided to like double down and watch the second one.
Uh-huh.
Then, yeah, that's a bit much. That's
Ironically or unironically?
that's hopefully ironically. That's the only excuse.
Oh
So
my God.
that is our casting for our remake versions, for our real take versions. Now we've got a couple minutes to throw out any ideas that we have for other mashups. We've got the Golden Girls, which I think is brilliant.
Oh, love it.
I think also with your older version, like in an Office Space kind of thing, like The Office would definitely be something that could be kind of mashed in there as well. You can see it, maybe them working for a different branch of Dunder Mifflin, and then you could have like guest appearances by some of the characters.
And especially having that, if you did the BJ Novak sort of directing style, the guerrilla style where they're actually looking at the cameras, that could be great too. You could literally have someone in the next cubicle over choking to death, and you could have someone looking right at the camera like, yep, this is happening. And everybody's got their AirPods in listening to whatever, doing their work, or they're on a Zoom meeting. Everybody's on a team meeting, and someone over here is just dying and nobody knows it.
Perfect. So just like how many people can get off in the office surrounded by people that are just not paying attention. I love that. I love that. I think for a mashup, I would love to do some sort of like Bring It On meets Heathers kind of vibe where you're also incorporating some of the other angry, like revenge teen girl movie characters as well. You get Mean Girls, you get Jawbreaker, you get Heathers, all at different schools going to a cheerleading competition, and it's like a mean girl off.
Ooh. And maybe they put on each other's costumes and they're like sabotaging each other.
Perfect. Yeah, they could be. Yeah, I saw one of them in this uniform doing this thing. Yeah.
And all of a sudden she doesn't catch her when she's supposed to, or she launches her entirely too high.
Nice. Or like setting fires and stuff, and the fact that they're all blonde white girls, like you can't tell them apart, so they can just have that.
And there's an eyewitness.
Have that like American Psycho thing where they just all get confused with one another because they all dress the same, look the same.
Yes.
Into it.
I would watch it.
Now we are at the last little bit of our episode on Heathers, where we are both going to be doing some trailers for a version that we're going to do. I think I'm going to knock out some McG action for my trailer. I think it'd be a lot more fun to do just like full on action Heathers movie. Which version do you think you're going to lean towards?
I did the Golden Girls. Yeah,
Okay.
I did it already, and I totally, because it just was it was irresistible.
Oh, fair enough. All right. Well, let me cue up the music here.
In a world of incontinence, orthopedic shoes, early bird specials, with four evil silver-haired beauties, Heaven helping us see down their performance. To ask them to use technology, and for the love of Jared Hall, take the fuck off their lawn.
Nice. All right.
Could have been for the love
Fantastic.
of Diesel, it didn't matter.
You know, I think we have 4 versions of Heathers now, but I think your Golden Girls version is my favorite.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you. You know, I was once we got started, I was like, oh shit, is the Karen one's just a little too predictable?
No, not at all. I think it's definitely taking a different approach to the material, but that's kind of the fun of the show is coming up with like different ideas on how to approach it.
And it's a movie I would want to see.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
I want to see this, which is why I went so far with the soundtrack, because I thought, I know what I want to play when you see them having a romantic moment. I know what I want to see when they're walking out of a building that they just lit on fire. Like, I know what I want to see.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of things I want to see, I definitely do want to see this McG version that I'm about to do here. So let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to a new take on a classic 80s revenge film, Heathers. This ain't your mom's Heathers. This is McG's Heathers, from the director that brought you Charlie's Angels and Charlie's Angels Full Throttle and Babysitter, and the second Babysitter movie that has some other name to it, and Terminator Salvation. McG's Heathers, starring Bridget Lundy Payne as Veronica, a disaffected youth that decides to take revenge on her best friends for being such blonde jerks. This summer, the croquet is not the only thing it's in your yard. I don't know. Croquet. There's croquet in this movie, and also in this movie is Kyle Allen, Beanie Feldstein, Emma Roberts as the head Heather, and Logan Lerman and Jacob Elordi as Kurt and Ram, star-crossed lovers? This summer, McG's Heathers.
It would be such a tone-deaf version that I think it might actually be brilliant. The McG version. So that is our time for this episode of Smack My Pitch Up. Thank you so much, listeners, for sticking around, hearing our incredibly stupid ideas for a remake of Heathers. If you have not seen Heathers, I know it's available on, I think, 8 different streaming services for free. It's all over the place, so it's very easy to track down. Also, do yourself a favor and do like a double or triple feature. Check out Jawbreaker if you haven't seen Jawbreaker. Rewatch Mean Girls. I know you've probably seen Mean Girls. And it's a perfect trilogy movie night choice to do. So,
yes, get yourself a lot of chocolate for Mean Girls.
There we go.
For that scene, or for that little plot they've got going on there.
Perfect. But I want to thank Reese for coming on and helping me pick apart this movie a little bit.
Oh, thank you.
And,
It was so much fun preparing. I can't even tell you.
Well, I thank you for being a friend.
You know, I almost thought about doing a theme song. Thank you for being a fiend.
Perfect. And also, speaking of perfect, I do want to mention to the listeners that you actually were nice enough to put together something for this episode for their enjoyment.
I did. I put together a soundtrack for my version of Heathers. It is 19 tracks. I put it on Spotify. My username is HRH Queen Reese, and the playlist is called Smack My Pitch Up Heathers Reimagining. So yeah, and you can put the link in the post, but I just chose a lot of great local artists, a lot of great well-known songs just for various moods and feelings of what I want to see happen.
Perfect. Well, I think that'll really inform the tone a little bit as well.
Yes.
So thank you for doing that. That's a great idea. And I'll have a link to that in the notes for this episode we'll be posting links to it on our social media as well. So definitely take a look for that. Even if you just want to hear a new playlist and maybe find some new artists, that's the way to do it.
Absolutely. Special local artists. Yeah.
And speaking of local artists, definitely check out Shockoe Sessions
Shockoe Sessions Live every Tuesday at 7:30 on YouTube. Mm-hmm.
So I'll have links to that and some of your other stuff, podcasts and what have you on the links
All the
as well.
places to use my mouth.
Yeah, exactly. It's important to let people know where you're using your mouth. It's quite important. So, again, thank you. And listeners, thank you so much for sticking around. We'll find you here next week for another episode. I'm Mike the Hobbit, and you just got pitch smacked.
GUIPodcast.com.
My name is Amy Bogard,
And I'm Mike the Hobbit.
and we are the hosts of Deeply Upsetting, where we use our expertise to answer your most upsetting hypothetical quandaries, such as what non-winged animal deserves wings?
And what body part deserves a secret mouth?
Which cryptid is the worst roommate?
These questions and more that plague you will be answered on Deeply Upsetting, available anywhere you get your podcasts and at GUIPodcast.com.
Coming straight from the mouths of madness, I'm Lowdown.
I'm F.U. Hunter.
Do you love horror?
We fucking do.
So this is a podcast dedicated to all things in cinematic horror. We're talking movies, television, composers, special effects artists. We're gonna fucking cover it.
So if you love horror,
Embrace the madness.
Hey guys, Scotty Big Daddy Preston here, that's right, the Geek Father, asking you to join me here every other week with friends and family of the GUI Network as we go through all the trials and tribulations of being a geeky parent. So remember, join us or cry.